Welcome to the Unboxable podcast, because there has never been a better time to step into your big girl shoes and realize that you are made for more joy, more alignment with your life purpose, and more connection. I'm Alena Turley, and I'm inviting you to join me in exploring how we can connect within ourselves and with those in our circles more deeply so we can make big change while still showing up as the best mothers, women, and humans possible. Let's begin. Hello, Jo.
Hey, Alena. So nice to be here.
Oh, so nice to see you. I've been wanting to do this with you for quite some time. I'm not quite sure how we left it so long. So thank you for coming along and taking some time to hang out with us today.
Absolute pleasure. I love nothing more than talking and just chatting about all things in general. So we've already had a great warm up. I think we've spent the last 15 or so minutes catching up and seeing what we're doing and what's happening.
I know. I often think, why don't we record all of that? It's like really fun to just talk and hear what you've got to say. But the first thing I like to ask my guests is, who are you? Where are you? And what do you love to do?
So who am I? Well, that's a big, deep philosophical question, isn't it? I can answer that I am a number of hats. So I am wife to my husband of nearly 28 years. I'm a mum. I have 2 adult children now and 1 puppy dog. And I am an ex-teacher. So that's sort of looking at the past life. I am a sister. I am a friend. I am a mentor and supporter and cheerleader of women. Basically, I just love working in that space of women, and particularly midlife women. Where I am now living in the Sunshine Coast in the Noosa Hinterland area. I did come from rural and remote parts of Queensland prior to that. I spent most of my life on the land and on properties. So that's a whole other interesting part as well, that a lot of people in Australia don't get to experience. And what was the last one that what
do you love to do?
What do I love to do? Oh my God, I love to travel. I love to investigate and learn. I'm a lifelong learner. I absolutely love learning things. I love to experience. I love to talk. I love to meet people. I love to get out of my comfort zone every now and then. Well, actually, probably most times, just to get that feeling of nothing like jumping out of planes, not that sort of comfort, discomfort. Yeah, I love good food. I love good gins. I absolutely love a good gin. Yeah, I just probably love life as well. I'm sort of really embracing this stage of my life.
Wow, thank you, Jo. I think it's quite lucky that we didn't discover that we both like good gin when we were away together last year. That could have been extremely dangerous.
It would have been a very, very slippery slope, no doubt.
Yeah, but I'm slightly disappointed at the same time. I want to take a pause to share with you the incredible work that the women in the Soul Mama community are doing at the moment to step into big change, into their version of success, healing the obstacles that stop us, helping silence the negative self-talk, the self-doubt that gets in the way of us, bringing into the world our biggest visions for ourselves, our families, and our communities. It's a supportive space. You can join a free community and gain a host of resources. You will feel the gentle accountability of the community at www.alenaturley.com. That is ALENATURLEY. I can't wait to see you in there, people. So Jo and I met last year. We were in a group, a mastermind with the wonderful Tracy Harris, and we had a couple of incredible experiences. And one of those was in Coogee in Sydney in Australia, and another one was in a remarkable location, which was Early Beach. And coming out of that, I think we were just talking a little bit about how we have learned a lot about ourselves and about being in business. And I'd love to hear just in a nutshell, what is your business and what are the lessons that you are currently taking into the running of that business?
Yeah, well, my business is only relatively new because I came out of over 30 years of teaching. I've been a lifelong educator as well. And So for me, I had reached burnout stage, and I needed something where I could still use my skills and my passion and my love of being able to help support, but I knew it wasn't going to be with children. So I'm actually working. And again, I'll just backtrack a little, Elena. You know how it's sometimes where you find your passion comes from something that you're sometimes going through, and your wish to help others often comes from that. So going through quite a lot in the middle of life for me, losing my parents, having children leave home, going through perimenopause, going through burnout, knowing that this isn't what I wanted to do, leaving where we lived to move to a new location. There were so many big changes in my life. And I knew from that, I learned so much about myself. I learned on how I can cope with things. And I learned, and again, I mentioned I'm a lifelong learner. So I did lots of different courses and study in different areas. And I knew that other women, if I'm going through it, I know other women are too, because my friends, my peers, the mums at school, they were all talking about similar sorts of things. So I actually work supporting and mentoring women in the middle of life. So I look at their help support them in their health and wellness through a membership, where we get guest experts to come in and just look at all aspects of our wellness, so we can make sure that our health is optimal now and well into the future. And I also work mentoring women on a one-on-one now. And that's something that I've really started this year and absolutely loving, because that way you've got that relationship with the woman, and you can really just help to guide them with set processes and see them bloom. And that's something that, and in the work that you do, that's all you want for other people to experience, to get out of whatever uncomfortable situation that they might be in, and just start to bloom.
Absolutely. So I'm going to throw you in it now. Let's say pretend me comes to you as a client. Where do you start in your mentoring, your one-to-one mentoring? Talk me through the first few steps, how you help women.
It's really is working out where you are right now. Sometimes when it's looking at I suppose, how you're feeling right now, where that's come from and where you want to go. And often in the busyness of motherhood and this time of life, because you think when your kids are little, it's a busy time, but when they get older, it ramps up to another level. You're suddenly a taxi and traveling a lot to sport.
Different busy, isn't it?
It's a different busy. And then you've got the added pressures and the thinking of supporting parents who are becoming elderly and needing that care. And then you've got the job, and then you've got, it's different. And then you've got your body changing. So all of a sudden you don't have time to think about yourself, because you're so busy over so long, so many years of caring for others. So it's really just probably starting with a deep dive on who are you now, and then where do you want to be, and what can you do to start getting yourself from that place of where you are now to where you want to be. And for a lot of women, they haven't given themselves that time and space to even consider who they are at this point in time, let alone what they might like to be thinking about doing in the next 12 months, 5 years, 10 years. So it's a really lovely process to be able to take women through. And sometimes you get caught up in your own world and your own thoughts and headspace, and maybe from those around you as well, that you lose sight of what is actually possible. And it's so lovely just to open up that book of possibilities then to see, this stage of life, you can be bloody anything you want to be. So let's get it started. Let's get that process started.
That sounds amazing. And I would love to hear a little more, as much as you'd like to share about your experience of this. You touched on being burnt out and experiencing layer upon layer upon layer of pressures. What happened? What happened for you to realize that? What actually got you from I'm in the middle of it to where you are now? Talk me through that.
I can still picture when I was curled up in a ball on the couch, just sobbing uncontrollably. And again, thinking it was not the thing that caused it. It was just the last. How sometimes we just put up with, so it's one layer upon, as you were saying, it's one thing after another. And it was work related. And as I said, I've been teaching for over 3 decades in a number of different roles. And teaching's very different to what it was when I started in the end of the 80s. I mean, a lot of the listeners may not have even been born then, but 1988 is that was my first year of teaching, and it was bloody brilliant. And then I went out and I was teaching in small rural schools. I was a small school principal for nearly 5 years, and then it was always in rural and remote schools from that point onwards. And there was freedom, but then the whole, it really was work related was the biggest thing.
Yeah,
it was such a different workspace and expectations of what education is, and it was completely different to how I believe children should be taught, how education should be. So I was dealing with that 5 days a week, and you take and the expectations were so much more of you as a teacher. So when you're dealing with that, and you've got to be all in. The passion has to be there when you are a teacher. You start to lose that passion, you cannot do your job as well.
So true.
But when you've got that, and then you've got on top of other things and life changes, like going through grief, caring for, and then losing, my mother-in-law, and helping her through the dying stages, and then my father prior to that, and then my mum, and helping her. So you're dealing with loss, grief and loss. And then losing your children, not that they've gone anywhere, but apart from home, but just losing that the role of who you are as a mother.
It's an identity.
It is an identity. So it's working out, well, if I'm not that, well, who am I going to be, and how do I morph, and how is it going to change? And I absolutely love my relationship now. I think I absolutely love adulthood, young adults, more than I did when the children were little, actually, to be perfectly honest. And then and leaving a secure area where we lived for quite a while to a brand new community. So, all of that led me to a point where it was just, you soldier on because you do and you have to. And then there was just that one little thing that happened, and I just went, I can't. My body just went, whoa, no more. And at that point, I've got to change, and it's me that's got to do it.
That's fascinating, isn't it? That you actually recognized it was your body telling you. It was a very physical sensation, hey?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so where a lot of people would treat that as a crisis and then just return to teaching, what was it that got you to then move into what you're doing now? How did you end up, literally, how do you start something like that? You have this idea, you say, okay, I can't be the only person going through this. I really want to help other people. You're driven, impact driven, as some would say, to make an impact for other women. What happens next? What was the next bit?
Yeah, that's so interesting. Learning how I can help myself, learning what's going to help me into this next half of life, because, in all honesty, we're going to be living another 40 or so years, and damn well I want to be anyway. And I want to be, I don't want to be just existing in my 70s, 80s and 90s. I want to be living. I want to live life large. So how am I going to do that? So I just went from that point where I want to be, and then work backwards. And I went, right, I want to be able to use this well-researched information to help other women. What can they do to make sure that they've got their life, their health and their wellness on track, so that they can live the life that they want to lead when they start to age, in decades' time. And it starts now. So I think because I was a teacher, sharing what I know was obvious to me, and learning how to do that and how I wanted it to look. I didn't want to be working the hours that I did when I was teaching. That was insane. And I wanted to, as we were taught, create a life by design. So it's working out, what did I want it to look like, and then work out from that point. But it changes all the time.
Yeah.
And again, we were talking before you hit record, is that you can start off with a great idea, and by all means, that's what you should be doing. Trial it. And I was saying, it's like putting on a pair of pants. Now it's too small, I can't do it up, or it's, my bum looks too big in that. Well, your business can be the same. This isn't quite how I want it to look. So how do I want it to look?
You're telling me my bum looks big in my business, Jo?
You can wear whatever you like. If you want to be the crazy hat lady, by all means, you go right ahead. But
I do like a hat. I am a little partial to a hat now and then. I think what I love the most about hearing you talk about this, Jo, is that, and we were mentioning again offline about this, that through this process, I have observed you finding your voice in a way that you didn't have it before. When we first connected, it was probably 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half, like quite a while ago. And me too, when I think about the way that my voice has changed and the way that I tell my story and the way that I interact with my mentees, my mentor clients, or the members of a membership. I also run a membership, as you know. So the way that we speak and listen and interact and serve will evolve as we evolve, And what I've loved about hearing your story is it's filled in some gaps because I've seen your voice evolve. I've seen you find your voice and continue to find your voice through your business and through your midlife in a way. And it's been really inspiring. And you've got this amazing way about you that is at the same time deeply considered, but also lighthearted and funny. And that's a rare combination, and it's one that I really appreciate in you. And I would love to hear a little bit from you about what that's been like on the inside. What does it feel like to have a voice grow stronger in midlife?
How good is it? Like, you do speak to so many women at this stage of life too, because it's not just unique to me, and you're experiencing it as well. But how bloody good is it to suddenly feel confident enough that you might have had when you were younger? You're now more comfortable within yourself to actually say them. You're not as worried what others are thinking. I mean, that is still there, and that's the beast that, to be honest, that I work with as well, and you still work with, and it shouldn't be there, but it still is, because I think after having socially conditioned to that for so many years, being so worried about what everyone else thinks and being the good girl and not wanting to upset anybody, it's really hard to then suddenly come out and go, oh, be buggered, I'll just say whatever I want. So there's still that element where I am a bit considered, like you were saying, but then I am becoming more confident because I know what I'm wanting out of life as well. That's a whole process, I think, you find, and that's what's so beautiful for anyone who is younger, to know that as you get older, this most phenomenal opportunity happens for a woman where you can start to really decide who you are and who you want to be. And I suppose that's what I've become. Yeah, my pants are fitting better now, if we use that analogy as well. Like a really comfy pair of tracky dacks now, whereas before they might have been jeans that were too tight, the wrong size, and I'm just squeezing into them, or they weren't quite right. But I'm just truly enjoying being able to talk. And I think through our stories, and that's what I love on my podcast as well, Alena, is that listening to other women and hearing their stories, because we've got such incredible diverse backgrounds, and I just bloody love that.
Yeah, me too.
Love it. And how you can then use that, and what are your greatest joys, or what are your greatest disappointments, and how are you going to be, what are you looking forward to, and what are you going to do about it, so you can really enjoy it. I mean, we need to hear the upside of things, and not Pollyanna-ish, but we need to hear that there is a lot of upside, because I think there's so much negativity that we can find anywhere that you turn on the television or social media. If you want to find it, it's there. So how about we use our voice as women in a more uplifting, positive way as well, just to be encouragers, not so much being the naysayers, or just to look on the doom and gloom of things all the time.
It's interesting, that fine line. I think, I've been talking with some other people, and had a guest in our membership this month who mentioned something that's fascinating to me, which is he used the term psychobiology. And I thought it's such a good term for the way that we interact within ourselves, between things that we automatically do and then things that we can learn to do, learned behaviors, social conditioning, cultural conditioning. But some of it is in us. Our brain has evolved to keep us safe. So that critical voice is there to keep us safe, to protect us, especially if we've had adverse experiences of any kind. As you've mentioned, as I've mentioned, we do have those systems that kick in to keep us safe. So how do we navigate still honouring the fact that we have these systems set up to keep us safe, still working within those systems and alongside those systems? How do we navigate the psychobiology of a situation so that we come out with a more positive outlook, with a more positive outcome? I just think it's a really fascinating conundrum when you work with women, because we have so many deep layers of conditioning. And we have so many adverse experiences as we grow, as we become disempowered just by the nature of systems in our society. So how do we re-empower? And the language I've been using lately is mining for joy, like you're talking about, joy mining, like seeking out the things that give us that sense of expansion and joy and openness, and mining for those, and really encouraging and noticing and putting energy in those spaces. And then also just really looking at how do we find that empowerment again to take hold of the narrative and decide when we're going to be critical, when it serves us to be critical, and when it serves us to be thinking in those ways, and when it doesn't.
Yeah, that's a great question, and what a great topic. I loved it as well. I mean, that's the sort of thing that, you know, lights us up as communicators as well, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think the recipe for every woman is so damn different.
Right.
It's going to look different for every person, because what I do is not going to suit what you do and the next woman and so forth. So I think it's finding things out and knowing that when we try something, I love that mining for joy, because that joy is such a key part, isn't it?
Oh, it really is.
For me, that's the purpose of living. I just
totally agree.
I think
it's the juice. And I just want to mention something. I was thinking about looking at us objectively, you and I, Jo, right? So we do very similar things. We mentor women. We have memberships for women. We're both mentors / coaches. I think you're more coachy. I'm probably more on the mentoring side, sometimes a bit coachy.
Probably more going into the mentoring side now too.
It's shifts and changes, right?
Absolutely.
But we're very similar. Like if you look at the what's on the box, it's super similar. But you and I both know we work very differently. We have very different essence to the way that we work. We bring different experience to the way that we work. And I think one of the beautiful things about stepping into our voice, stepping into our power, understanding our unique gifts, and our unique offerings, our special things that we bring to our work, is that I want to amplify your work. I want whoever it is that is out there that needs Jo Clark magic to find Jo Clark. And what I love about the way that the world is now is that two women like us, similar age, similar boxes, actually working very different. I think you and I know that. But we can sit together and we can honestly, hand on heart, amplify each other's work, and do that in a way that is completely collaborative and non-competitive. I feel zero competition with you, Jo, thankfully. And I love that about us and the way that we work. I love that about the world of women in this kind of work particularly, is that we have the ability to sit next to each other, swap notes, share our stories, and amplify each other, because I know deeply in my being that anyone who needs Jo Clark magic needs Jo Clark, not Alena Turley, and so I genuinely, if I spoke to someone and they sounded like they would be your ideal client, I would say, you know what, you need to speak to a friend of mine. Her name's Jo Clark. She's amazing. Here's her number. And I think this is such a big shift in the way that women are in this world that we are building, where collaboration is more prominent than competition. There will always be competition for resources in our world. It's natural, but it is coming to a place where we live in such abundance, especially thankfully in our very privileged existence in Australian Western society. It's extremely privileged. We have that ability to actually work collaboratively and amplify. And I believe that it actually amplifies us both when we do that, in a very special way. So I love hearing about special Jo Clark magic so that I can bring the people that need special Jo Clark magic, Jo Clark.
Yeah, absolutely, Ella. That is 100% correct, because you think about whenever you go shopping, grocery shopping now, you will have, go to the fruit and veggie section, you'll have 5 or 6 different sorts of apples that you can choose. Not everyone's going to be wanting a Granny Smith. Some people like Pink Lady. Some people like the Red Delicious. Some people like the Fuji. We're the same, aren't we? And we can't be everything to every person. And some people will absolutely love you. Some people will absolutely despise you. And that's great. I'm not for you. Yeah. Like you were saying, I'll send them on to you. Find something that is right for you, because bloody hell, life's too short, isn't it? We've got to be able to find things that align with you, rather than put up with something that's just not quite right.
Yeah, and I think it frees us up. I'm Red Delicious, by the way, in that story, 100%.
I'm a pink lady myself.
Yeah, I think you're Pink Lady. But I think what's so cool about what you just said is that when we actually give ourselves permission, I give you permission, here's the note. When we give ourselves permission to claim our human right to authenticity. It's human right to be authentically who you are. Doesn't matter. Sexual orientation doesn't matter. Human right. Okay. Be who you are. And when we claim that and really learn that, we also give ourselves permission. Here's another note, to not give a hoot. I wanted to say another word there. Not give a hoot about those that don't, those that we are not to their taste. It gives us freedom. Authenticity is freedom, because then it's like, oh my gosh, thank goodness I don't have to please everyone anymore. So I was talking today actually with the members in my membership. We were having our monthly mama circle, and I was saying, don't you just love how we're all recovering people pleasers? Like, we really are. We're every one of us for different reasons. And I think so many of us are learning to claim our space, our authentic space, claim our voice in midlife.
I think it's a generational thing as well. I look at some of the younger women now, and again, because there's choice. Perhaps when we were a similar age, when we were in our late teens, early 20s, and going through our 20s and early 30s, we didn't have that range of choice. We were given certain role models, or
it certainly didn't feel like we had so much choice. I know what you're saying.
No.
Yeah.
Whereas I think now all of a sudden women are going, as they get a little bit older, who are sort of our age, are going, oh, wow, I have got a choice. I can do this. I don't have to be like that. Whereas perhaps it'll be interesting to see how it evolves when the younger women are our age.
It will be interesting. Yeah, it will. But there's also, I think, added pressure to conform, because there's so many ways that they're told to be through social media.
Oh, it's far more complicated. Oh my God, yeah.
It's a big fat experiment, isn't it? I know
it is.
It's certainly interesting to watch. Some people seem to respond, young people that I've met, some respond by being very vocal and very bold, and others go the opposite. I feel like it's creating a polarization in a sense. But that's just an observation. I don't know. I think that finding your voice at any age is really important. And whatever that looks like at wherever you're at, whether you be 6 years old, 2 years old, or 102.
And to know it can change. I think sometimes you can find a voice and think that's got to be my voice forever, through every iteration of who I am, and that's just not the case. That, if you look back even 2 years ago to how you were 10 years ago, I mean, we're different people, so therefore our voice should also change to reflect.
And giving yourself permission to evolve is a huge part of this. Like you and I also were talking about this, that we really, I think when I started in my business, and even when I started my blog, and that was 2009, I felt like I had to pick a thing and stick to it and never change. And I think what's happened for me over time is it's become very, very clear that there's a great expression: millionaires change their plans every minute and billionaires change them every second. That actually agility and change are the way that we succeed. And success is defined by you, So...
And thinking about that, we were talking about, my past life as a career. I think that's what the difference was. When I first started, it was more of a billionaire. You could be and do and change, and you had that creativity until suddenly you were put into this, tiny little box, and you're going, well, I've got to get out of here because it's not right. It doesn't fit me. I don't fit into this tiny little box. And maybe that's another thing that we think of as women too, Alena, is that, the boxes that we're put in at certain times, we've got to break out of, because it's, it doesn't serve anybody to remain in a box, does it?
Do you know what, Jo? Nearly every time I record a podcast episode, somebody refers to the name of the podcast, Unboxable.
Look at that wing.
And it's just so cool, because you've just...
You need a bell.
Exactly right. Ring the bell. We're done here. Because honestly, I cannot tell you how often it naturally happens. I don't know if I plant little hypnotic seeds when I send the...
It might be all those boxes in the background you've got.
Maybe. I do love boxes, actually. I don't like living in them.
You don't have any.
I've got them in my mind. It's the way that I work. I love wooden boxes, any kind of box. Just don't put me in one ever. I refuse to be boxed.
Yeah, that's interesting that you've said that.
You're a kindred spirit, Jo Clark. Is there anything else you would like to tell people about the work you do, about where they can find you? Of course, I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Yep. You can find me on Instagram at Jo Clark Coaching. My website's at it's joclarkcoaching.com. I've got a page on Facebook, and I've also got a private women's free membership, free Facebook group called Women's Wellness Collective. And you can find my podcast Redefining Midlife as well. And
excellent.
We'd love to see you at some point.
Yeah, of course. We'll reach out to Joe. That's Clark with no E. Joe with no E and Clark with no E.
That's it. I've got to be very good. Not Joe. Joe and Clark without an E. Yeah.
And Joe, it's been such a pleasure to have you here in the Unboxable podcast, and it's been really lovely to catch up. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Joe. Bye. This has been a production made with love, and I will continue to offer the best possible resources to assist you in staying connected and reconnecting, if you've lost connection, to your deeper purpose and your deeper meaning, so that you can go out and make the big change that I know that you are called to do. If you know another woman who might enjoy this, please share it with her. Leave a review, get in touch with me on socials or inside the Soul Mama community through the website in the show notes. I really love connecting with women on this journey. It's seriously what I am here to do. And I absolutely love bringing these conversations to you. So anything you can do to help me spread the word really helps it reach more women who need this special magic. Thank you for being here. I'll see you soon.